and it was never accounted for when Donna Mae Curley became the probate representative, and it was never accounted for when Michael Longyear was the attorney for Dorothy Grega. Michael Longyear has an obligation to file taxes on behalf of the companies that he represents as a guardian in estate cases. Now, another case that I worked on that involved Michael Longyear, let me tell you about that as a private detective, another case that I was involved with. Michael Longyear was the guardian of the estate of Hayes LLC. They have $20 million of assets on Elliott Bay. Arthur Hayes is the ward. The guardianship was entered against the estate. And so Michael Longyear took on the estate. And that has been going on for about 8 years, 10 years, I don't know how many years. And Michael Longyear, as the guardian of the estate and as the member of the LLC, Michael Longyear, not only did he grab the $22 million of assets on Lake Washington, he also removed the son, who was the member of the LLC. He removed the son, he removed Arthur Hayes. That was Arthur Hayes' company. Arthur Hayes had that company for maybe 50 years. He built that. He bought all the property on Elliott Bay. And Michael Longyear, as an attorney in Seattle, removed Arthur Hayes as being incompetent to handle his businesses. He didn't make him incompetent to handle himself, and he gave him $1,500 a month to live on. And Michael Longyear started selling some of the assets of the Hayes LLC. And anytime you sell assets, that's a capital investment, and that is taxable. When you sell an asset, that's taxable. And Arthur Hayes, his estate, Michael Longyear had a legal obligation as the attorney for the estate and as the attorney who is the member of the LLC. Michael Longyear is the only member of the LLC in those days. I put in a complaint to the court. Then I put in a complaint to the bar. I put in a complaint to the bar about Michael Longyear's representation of all sorts of things. And I put in a complaint to the bar that Sally Lanham assaulted me in court and that her conduct in the case was unethical. Anyway, back to Michael Longyear. Michael Longyear did not pay taxes on the assets that were being liquidated by the Hayes LLC. And that's very significant because the Hayes LLC has millions of dollars of buildings on Lake Washington. And one of the houses was sold to a lobbyist. And the thing is when you buy and sell, the capital gains on the value you bought it from and the value you sold it to has to be declared as income. And there's no tax returns. Michael Longyear is the attorney who is legally responsible to file tax returns on behalf of Arthur Hayes and on behalf of the Hayes LLC. Michael Longyear was the attorney legally responsible, and Sally Lanham was the attorney legally responsible on the Dorothy Grega case. They were responsible to file tax returns for Dorothy Grega, and they were legally responsible to correct and amend the guardianship, the charitable trust tax returns that BDO is a national accounting firm. Victoria Salas was the representative who signed the tax returns in 2005 and 2006. They had a legal obligation in 2007 when I got involved in the case, and I was hired as a private detective for Dorothy Grega, and Dorothy Grega never fired me, so I still represent Dorothy Grega, and she still owes me an invoice. But Michael Longyear and Sally Lanham had an obligation to file the tax returns and correct them. There's 2 or 3 tax returns that BDO did, and those tax returns are fraudulent, because even the stocks that they list as Oppenheimer stocks on the tax return, those are all created. The accountant just put those in there. They're not real. We called and we went in to a stockbroker to find out about those items on the tax return, and none of them have the real case numbers on them, and none of them were real stocks. And all of the assets liquidated by Richard Gregoric, Sally Lanham, Michael Longyear. BDO had a legal obligation because they were the accountants. Victoria Salas was the trustee of the charitable trust. But none of those assets have been accounted for in any tax returns. And that's what I do as a private eye. I'm Seattle Detective Bureau. I have a private detective company. I've been here for 41 years, and I do cases like that. Another one of my cases was a case, Henry Hill. He was Martin Todd Lewis. He was in the witness protection program out of New York. And a New York federal court was doing a lawsuit, and Judd Bernstein, who is a lawyer in New York, hired me, Seattle Detective Bureau, to track down witnesses to impeach the credibility of Henry Hill. And when I was working on that case, I talked to Fred Canevor, who was the prosecutor up in Friday Harbor, because Henry Hill kept getting DUIs up there, and he kept failing to appear in court because he was snatched to go to New York for different federal trials, and also he was writing that book with Nick Pileggi, the odd fellow. And in that case, I worked on that, and I had to find different people, and I had to find Sherry Enders. And I found the relatives of Henry Hill. They were all over. One of them was in Boston, and I found him at his apartment in Boston. And so anyway, in that case, that was like 100 years ago, 80s. And in 2018, Matthew Pearl called me up, and he was doing an article on Sherry Enders, who was the woman who got married to Henry Hill, the only one who ever got married to Henry Hill, when he was in the witness protection. Sherry and Martin rushed down to Vegas to get married because Henry said, "Oh, let's go get married." They went down to Vegas and got married. She's the only one who ever married Henry Hill in the name the U.S. Marshals gave him. When you get into witness protection, the U.S. Marshals or the FBI, they give you a name, they give you a social security number that they create, and they give you a driver's license. They physically come to your house once a month and give you $1,500 to live on. And Sherry Enders was the only one that married Henry Hill. Henry Hill was married under Martin Todd Lewis. Henry Hill was married under Henry Hill. But under Martin Todd Lewis, Sherry Enders was his only wife. And he wasn't in the witness protection with his wife when they got married. After they got married, after Sherry and Henry got married, Martin Todd Lewis got married, then Henry Hill's wife and kids, Mike was one of the kids that I went to Boston to interview. Anyway, when he was in the witness protection and the wife came, then he was living with his wife again. And he went back to that married life, not Sherry's married life. But Matthew Pearl and Greg Nichols contacted Sherry in order to do a story. And that story is called Secrets and Wives. Truly Adventurous was a blog that they did. At the time that I spoke to Matthew Pearl, he told me that the Washington Post had paid him $250,000 or something like that, I don't remember, to do the story. Just a little piece. Then Matthew Pearl ended up doing a blog about it. Now, this is 2021. And now that article that was made in 2018 is being made into a film. And Matthew Pearl and Greg Nichols are now the producers on the film, and Carly Wire, W-R-A-Y, She did the screenplay for the new Secrets and Wives movie. And, I'm a private eye. I live here. I'm everywhere. And it would be fun to work on that film, too. So private eyes are everywhere. They either work on civil cases, criminal cases, domestic cases. Federal RICO is my favorite. If you got a federal RICO case and you're a whistleblower, I have a TV show called Public Interest Issue Show. I'd like to put you on the air so your information gets out there to the public. Because the only way we can get things done is by having people know about it. If you're alone, nobody knows about your case, nobody can help you. But if you have your case out there in the public eye, then people can know about it. And so as a private detective, I also have a TV show on TCTV, public access television, and I sometimes am hired to put these stories on the air. In Florida, I was hired to go down to Florida and film a lot of people talking about guardianship abuse. And we did a film about that. So, private detectives are everywhere. We do all sorts of things, and we